Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well. I'm Rob, I'm a violin and viola teacher, and today in this video I'm going to share with you some of the things I tell my students about how to get the most out of your practicing or practice the most efficient you can. Everybody knows that this instrument is absolutely ridiculous. It's extremely difficult. There's a reason why 11-year-olds aren't in symphonies. It's because it takes kind of years to do anything, but there's a trick to it, and there's a way to shorten up that time span, and I can share some of those tricks with you today. Now, the first cardinal rule of getting the most out of your practicing is you absolutely must practice slow. So many of my students just absolutely do not have patience to do this. And I'm sure a lot of you have felt that way at certain times. You just want to get to the good part, you know. But you absolutely must practice slow. The reason why we want to do this is because you have a span of, like, let's say 3 months, right? You're working on some piece. And the first, week or two, you just want to practice this song very, very slowly to get it absolutely correct or pretty darn close to correct. And then what you're going to do is over the weeks and months, you're going to be doing repetition. You're going to be playing it over and over and over, but you're going to be playing it correctly over and over and over. And so by the time you get a month, 2, 3 months in, you'll have repeated this correct over and over and over, and you're going to be developing muscle memory. And so by the time you get to the point where you're going to be playing faster, it's actually going to be pretty darn easy to move up the tempo because you're going to be so used to playing the song. So practicing slow is the absolute best way to get your playing to where it needs to be. Now, another big philosophy of mine to speed up this process is you absolutely need to break down your playing. The reason why you want to do this is because so many people don't really have a purpose to practicing. They're kind of like floating, in their song, and they're just kind of playing stuff and hoping it goes right. But before you start playing in the next 10 seconds or a minute or however long, you need to decide what your purpose is for this moment. And so one of the ways you can do that is sort of to break down your playing in some sort of way and say, this is what I'm going to work on for the next 10 seconds or the next line, or whatever your parameter is. And so here's a couple of ways you can do that. The first way you can do that is to work on your technique. So you can break down your technique in certain ways. Like, for example, you kind of do this with your playing in so many words, right? Where you go, okay, today or in the next minute, I'm going to work on curving this pinky, right? Or curving my thumb right, or, getting my elbow up. Or you can do it the other way where you go, okay, in the next 10 seconds, I'm going to keep my wrist down, right? If you've been putting your wrist up, or keep my violin from dipping. And it doesn't really matter. You have to make sure you tell yourself that it doesn't matter how good I play. My goal right now is wrist down. And you keep saying to yourself, wrist down, curve pinky, whatever the parameter is, you need to say that before you start playing. Okay, the purpose of this is to do whatever technique, right? With technique, a couple of ways that you can practice this that I found is technique is sometimes kind of monotonous and boring. And so when I'm doing warm-ups, this is a good time to kind of work on your technique. So a couple of things I can do is you can always do scales. With the breaking it down part, you want to sort of zone out everything else that you're doing so that I only have about 6 brain cells left, so I can use my 5 remaining brain cells to only focus on that one thing. So if you play a scale, just pick some stupid scale that you can sort of zone out what you're doing with your notes and focus on whatever thing you're doing. Like, let's say it's wrist down, and I play my scale, but at the time I don't really care about the scale itself. It's about playing random stuff while I keep my wrist down. It's about having something else that's distracting my brain, and I'm working on my wrist. So you're working on kind of both at the same time. So scales work really good. I've also, me who like to do a lot of improvising, I'll do that on warm-ups, where I'll just say, like, I'll start warming up, and let's say I'm trying to deal with my G string or something, and so I'll just do a whole bunch of random stuff. kind of keep coming back to that lower, side to work on my tone or whatever. So I like to use improvising kind of games to do that, to make it a little bit, a little bit more fun, I guess. And then another way you can do this is, especially if you have a lot of songs memorized, you can use old songs, like really easy stuff that you've learned, and just kind of, while you're playing stuff you like, work on some sort of technique. So it's not really about the song, it's about the technique itself, right? So that's one thing that you can definitely do with breaking your song down. Another thing that you can do is work on the parts of music, okay? And so if you're looking at this, every single contest, they're going to have some sort of rubric that's similar to this. So let's go through this really fast. So every single song basically has these parts to it. So you have your notes and your intonation, obviously your left hand, which pitches you're doing. You have your rhythm, what the speed of the song, right? For us as string players, we have bowing, we have down up, slurs, ties, that kind of a thing. At first, if you're looking at your 3-month span or 4-month span, what I would do is I would basically hit these notes and rhythms for at least a week or a month. Especially if the song is, high school or college level repertoire or something hard. I would deal with the notes and the rhythms for a while. And I would first try to figure out what the notes are, right? Then add your rhythm. So you're doing sort of one thing at a time, right? Again, is a really big part of practicing, is one thing at a time. Once you get the notes and the rhythms down, I found that it starts to actually sound like a song, right? Once you have your notes and your rhythms a little bit in your head and in your fingers or whatever, then you might be able to add some bowing to it. But you can only add bowing when this isn't driving you nuts. Right? So you add your bowing, you put some slurs in, etc. Then, once that feels really good, maybe you can move on to your articulation. So again, articulation is more like the style of the song. So that can deal with things like accents, that can deal with spiccato, right? Where right? Staccato, legato, right? Some sort of style of the song, right? Once you have this stuff dealt with, then you can kind of have enough bandwidth to deal with your spiccato, and you can sort of zone out your notes, right? After that, maybe you might be able to deal with dynamics. Dynamics are going to be extremely easy to practice when you have all this other stuff figured out. You can just sort of almost throw it in at the end or something, I found. Tone is another thing that you can deal with. Tone is tricky. When I've dealt with a lot of adult students, I found that this breakdown thing kind of helps, but I've had basically most of my adult students can't get over the tone part. And so when we're practicing, I think it's obviously because let's say they're 35 or 50 or whatever, they just lose it with the sound quality. If they keep getting scratching, or they keep, getting that kind of bouncy stuff, or squeaks, or a wishy-washy sound, I'm trying to sit there and work on rhythm with them, right? But they just can't get over the tone thing. And so you have to sort of understand that I found that rhythms, and at least the notes themselves, intonation's trickier, but the notes themselves and rhythms are sort of easier to deal with. But tone is not something you're going to be able to do in like 5 seconds, right? Even a couple months, you're not going to be able to get your tone perfect. It's an absolutely ongoing process for your whole life, is to constantly deal with your sound quality. So you almost got to understand that this is probably something that you're going to be dealing with more, is the notes and the rhythms at first, and then just let your tone come. You need to just play and play and play and play. So kind of breaking down really what you need to be working on right now is very, very helpful. So like I said, have a plan for your practice, right? Go, all right, if tone is really driving me nuts, then stop with all the other stuff and work on your sound quality. Go back to your scales, go back to some string crossings, or something, go do some exercises and deal with tone, but only deal with one thing at a time. And then lastly, we have our musicality, which is sort of the emotion that you're putting in. because you can do all of this stuff without putting any real like passion into your song. And so this is really difficult to practice at first. You need some kind of ability to control your technique and control your bow to get your emotion to come out. I can't do anything with a clarinet. So it doesn't matter how much passion I felt or how much life experience I have. I don't have any of this other stuff figured out. So you probably need to wait for this till you're, like let's say if you're a kid in 5th grade, you need to wait till you're in high school or college to even care about this. You have more stuff, you have bigger fish to fry, if you want to put it that way. So really break down the parts of music, especially when you're dealing with like sight reading stuff, and really figure out exactly what you're trying to practice right now and focus on that. Now, the other big thing that happens is people don't break down the actual song. Okay, so normally what happens is, let's say you had a piece of music here. Normal people who practice start at the top, they play down a ways, and then they kind of mess up, and then they go back up to the top, and they play down again, and they sort of mess up, maybe there or somewhere else. Then they go back up to the top and play down, and guess what they do after that? They go back up to the top, and they play it right there, and this is not really practicing, this is playing. You need to go absolutely right to the hard spot that you are messing up on, the exact measure. And then you need to break that measure down. Sometimes you need to break down literally to 2 notes, especially if you have minuet number 3 in Suzuki. I've found that like when you have this big like weird string crossing thing, you need to practice that string crossing kind of over and over until it sounds really good, even down to 2 notes. Shifting works like this too, where we have a shift. Let's say you have a, right? You go from that note into another note. I have a whole video on shifting if you want some more tricks on how to learn shifting, but literally break it down to those 2 notes. 2 to the 1, 2. You practice down to literally 2 notes and work on it over and over. Then you add a couple notes outside of it. I'll demonstrate this here in a minute. But what you want to do is you want to go right to the measure. Now, when you have a particular measure, let's take this one. I just made up a silly measure. So, when you have, especially when you have stuff with rests and ties, I found that this is really tricky for people to sort of figure out how to put it in sections. And so, for example, when you have rests and ties, I found that you want to be able to figure out exactly how long this rest is in your head, right? So you have something like a, right? So there's my beat. Dun, 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 bum. And that's how much you practice. You literally stop on this note. Dun, 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 rest, bum. And you want to figure out, again, exactly how long that note is. So you'd have something, if I'm going to play, and you're going to tell yourself, I'm going to play 4 notes. I have to repeat this to my students all the time. How many notes are we going to play right now? 4, because they always want to just keep going. They have to play the whole thing, and just, force yourself to break it down to a couple notes. So you just play all 4 of those notes. Rest. And you're finding out how long that note is in regards to your rest. Right? So the same thing happens with a tie. You're going to do the same thing. Dun, 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 rest, da, bum. And you're going to end on this note. Again, you're ending on this note to be able to hear exactly how long that tie is. Okay? So you might do something like, or you might literally play these 2 notes only. 1, 2, ba, ba. And that's it. Just for 2 seconds, you're going to play those 2 notes. 1, 2, and only those 2 notes. Then you might put it all together. Alright? Then you might work on the last 3 notes of the measure. So this comes on the and to 3. So for example, 1, 2, 3. And only work on the sort of the end of the measure, right? What I usually like to do, a little helpful hint, is I always like to finish out the phrase. It helps my ear a lot. So especially if you have a downbeat on the next measure, I would definitely play the downbeat every time. So you're hearing where the start of the next measure is, right? 3. And you're playing the last part. Then you might try it all the way through. Rest. Right? So what you want to do is you want to literally break down beats of the certain measure, all the way down to individual beats. Okay? So really breaking down your practice is extremely helpful. I found just doing one thing at a time, it's too many things. You have all this technique to deal with. My stupid thumb, right? My pinky, get your elbow up, right? Wrist down, curve fingers, and then you've got to the parts of the song dealing with the notes, the rhythms, the dynamics, and we haven't even started playing yet. It's just too much, right? It's too many things to think about. And so really work on your practice of really specifically telling yourself, what am I working on right now? Don't float through your practice session. I've seen so many people that can play for like 30 minutes, an hour, and get absolutely nothing done. But there's also some other people that can practice for 10 or 15 minutes and get a lot done. So now I'll just share with you a little bit about what my typical practice session might look like. So obviously if I have some sort of recording that I'm doing here in a couple weeks, or if somebody's asked me to play some song, I'm going to be basically, that's my practice session, is just deal with that song. So listen to it a whole bunch. So for example, a lady asked me to do a gospel tune, and I had a couple of riffs to play, and then she also had me improv. So I was just sitting there listening to the song and then practicing that song, right? Or I might have a song for my band that I'm working on that I'm gonna have to sing and or play. So then that'll be my practice session. I'll work on it for 30 minutes and get it really down and use that as my practice session for the week, hitting that song a lot. But let's say it's a spot where I don't have anything particularly that I'm trying to work towards. What I might do is, for me, I have a lot of stuff that I'm working on a lot. Sometimes for you guys, you might have 2 songs that you're working on in your practice session, and you want to deal with those. But for me, I'm trying to keep all of my skills up at some general level. So what I'm going to do is I have my viola to practice to keep those skills up. I also have my violin. So there's 2 things. I also want to keep some version of my sight reading up and my classical skills. And then I'm also dealing with jazz tunes. I'm also dealing with kind of keeping, practicing my blues. And then I'm also doing improv. And then also I have my, like I said, my just general technique. So what I might do is I might do a 30 or 45 minute practice session. And at first I'm just going to warm up. I might literally just sit there and just improv for 3 minutes just to kind of zone out and just get my hand working again. I'm just making up. I'm just making up notes, finding my bow grip, getting my pitch figured out, right? And so, but while I'm doing that, I'm practicing my technique. For the next couple minutes, I might just hack through a whole bunch of songs that I know. I might, get my bow grip. For me, I've told you this in other videos, is that I've been working on, instead of getting my finger on that side of the string, I'm kind of getting my finger in the middle of the string. So that's kind of a thing that I'm always dealing with, is getting my fingers exactly in the middle of the string. So I'm working on that while I'm playing through Beauty and the Beast or some whatever song, I feel like doing, Mario. Right, playing through Mario Galaxy or something, random songs, right? So I'll do that for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes is just play nonsense, but I'm working on technique. So I'm enjoying myself playing songs I like, and I'm doing my technique. Now, I might sit there again and play a classical tune after that for another 10 minutes and kind of deal with my viola, let's say. So I might play viola. So now I've hit two big things, my technique and my viola, and my classical, okay? So then, after that, I might play through a blues, right? And work on some improv in my book, get my violin out, and now I'm practicing through blues for 10 minutes. And then I might go ahead and get my jazz stuff out and practice through my jazz. And so in even 30 minutes, I've hit improv, I've hit viola, I've hit violin, blues, jazz, and technique, right? And then once in a while, I might get out some sight reading in there, or not do one of those and do sight reading. And so I've hit like 7 things already in 30 minutes. And so that's what I like to do with my practice session, is I'm hitting all of those things kind of in a row, right? So again, the bottom line that I keep telling you guys is absolutely break it down. Break it down. Right? Have some sort of reason why you're practicing right now, and tell yourself that. For the next 10 seconds, I'm going to deal with the rhythm, right? Or thumb down, right? You know, whatever the thing is, you need to tell yourself before you start. And one quick little tip, last tip I'll give you, is in regards to your self-esteem kind of stuff while you're practicing. I heard this amazing quote in college that he had us work on, is that you say, I am going to do A, right? And A could be thumb down or rhythm or whatever. But okay, let's say it's rhythm. So I'm going to work on rhythm, is A. Then the B part is you play, and then you have to do the A part when you're done. Tell yourself, how did I do on rhythm? Right? Don't say, oh, my intonation was great. I wasn't working on intonation right now, right? Tell yourself what I'm working on, and then you practice, and then and then ask yourself, how did I do on that particular thing, on the rhythm, right? Don't sit here and float around in a whole bunch of different versions you're playing, because you're not really you're not really telling yourself any good thoughts at that point. It's all just, who knows how I'm doing right now. You don't get any sense of if you're getting better at this or whatever. So definitely, and teaching, you can do this for teaching obviously. Tell yourself, I'm going to try for rhythm, then you play, then tell yourself, how did I do on rhythm? Right? And then one last thing is that make sure when you're practicing, ask yourself how you did. Like what was the thing that was wrong here, right? So let's say you play some line, right? You play a line of the song, and then ask yourself, okay, what was wrong about that, right? Or what was right about that? What did I do well? What did I not do well with? Let's say it's the C sharp. And so you go, okay, so for the next couple minutes, I'm going to practice my C sharp on that. And you go right to that spot and practice the C sharp, right? So have a plan for your practicing. It really is going to help you have some sort of direction, and when you get done, you'll feel that you've done something and you've accomplished something, and I guarantee you over 2 months you're going to see a massive amount of difference. So there you go, guys. That's what I got for you. Keep practicing slow, practicing parts, and you'll have it. So check out the rest of my channel. I got some interviews up there with other musicians. I have a bunch of tutorial videos like this if you want to learn some more tricks on how to be a better musician, and some reaction videos up there on different songs, and clips of me playing and stuff. So go check out my channel. Don't forget to like the video if you like what you saw, and subscribe to the channel if you want to hear some more stuff. So all right, see you guys later.